You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group, and co-hosts Uncle Mike Tosaw from St. Charles Wealth Management, Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian from OptionPit.com, Andrew the Rock Lobster Giovinazzi from OptionPit.com, and Henry the Flowmaster Schwartz from Cboe. The Option Block is brought to you by Cboe. Cboe's suite of S&P 500 index options, SPX and mini S&P 500 XSP options, allows traders to speculate on the direction of the market, generate income, and hedge for downside protection of their portfolio of stocks. No matter what kind of trader you are, there's plenty of useful information to take the guesswork out of creating your portfolio strategy and to help you make more educated moves in the market. Visit www.cboe.com/SPX today to learn more. The views expressed herein are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of Cboe Global Markets Incorporated or any of its subsidiaries, collectively Cboe. The information provided is for general education and information purposes only. There are important risks associated with transacting in any of the Cboe products or any of the digital assets discussed here. Before engaging in any transactions in those products or digital assets, it is important for market participants to carefully review the disclosures and disclaimers contained at www.cboe.com/US_disclaimers. These products and digital assets are complex and are suitable only for sophisticated market participants. These products involve the risk of loss, which can be substantial and, depending on the type of product, can exceed the amount of money deposited in establishing the position. Market participants should put at risk only funds they can afford to lose without affecting their lifestyle. And now, get ready to hit the Option Block.
All right, everybody. That music means we are back in action after a rare midweek hiatus, ready for your bi-weekly options extravaganza known around the globe as the Option Block. My name, of course, Mark Longo from the OptionsInsider.com, except no substitutes, as well as, of course, from the ever-engaging network upon which all you folks were mainlining this week. You know, we were dark yesterday, but the network is never devoid of content, listeners. There's always new stuff hitting. Even yesterday, no live shows, but you got some flavor, some tastes of my chats down at OIC. There's more of that to come, so a lot of fun stuff. See, even when the markets are closed, listeners, we've got you covered here at the old Options Insider. You're welcome. So if you like what you hear, throw a like, a star, a comment. It all helps new people continue to discover the content on a variety of platforms. And if you want to get, let's say, some of that stuff we put out yesterday, you want to get it far, far ahead of time. You want to get a whole bunch of exclusive shows like, let's say, I don't know, Options Oddities coming up tomorrow. Or perhaps you wanted to get our pro Q&A session with some guy called the Greasy Meatball earlier this week and a whole bunch of other fun. I mean, we went deep into all things vol. Again, these pro Q&A sessions are turning into vol sessions, but they're awesome. Check them out. TheOptionsInsider.com/pro is the place to go to join that ever fun partay over there. Get your name in the hat. You got it. Man, June already flying through. Hard to believe. You got your name in the hat soon for the June Pro Trading Crate. Trust me, you want to get at it. As we get at who's joining us on the old program today. First, let's go out let's go out to Cboe East, where we are joined once again by the flowingest of masters himself, Mr. Henry Schwartz, from the aforementioned Cboe. Mr. Flowmaster, welcome back to the show, sir. Toss to him, and he's not ready. Mr. Flowmaster, I can see you there, and I can see that you are muted. All right, you know what?
Wait, I'm here.
There he is.
Sorry about that.
You're like You're like me. This midweek holiday has got you all thrown off, sir.
It definitely is a little confusing. I think it's only maybe the third year we've had Juneteenth as a market holiday, as a national holiday. And yes, it's a midweek is a little bit confusing, but I'm here, and it's a beautiful, toasty, warm day in New York City. Market's got some interesting things for us today that we will certainly dig into, and it's good to see everybody.
Market is popping off indeed as we go around the horn, up from Cboe East, up to the shores of Maine, the dark, the stormy, the dangerous, some might say the floral print-wearing shores of Maine, where we are joined once again by the rockingest of lobsters, Mr. Andrew Giovinazzi from OptionPit.com. I bet you didn't know he had a Hawaiian shirt in his closet, listeners, did you? We all were surprised today to learn that.
I think I could have knocked my students over with a feather because they are used to seeing the flannel uniform every day of the week. They were wondering if the sun was still rising and the sky was still blue. That's how earth-shattering it was.
Yeah, you're used to the main uniform, the flannel, you know, the floral print, the magnum look. It kind of threw us all for a loop, but it was intriguing nonetheless. He gave us a good chuckle here on the show, so we appreciate that, Mr. Rock Lobster. As we keep going, I don't know if he owns a Hawaiian shirt. I guess we'll find out. He is the uncleest of Mikes, Mr. Uncle Mike Tosaw from St. Charles Wealth Management. Uncle Mike, do you rock the Magnum look on occasion, sir?
I do. I actually own 2 Hawaiian shirts that I actually bought in Hawaii.
Well, there you go. I guess they're official.
Yeah, otherwise it can't be a Hawaiian shirt if you didn't buy it in Hawaii, right?
Champagne if it doesn't come from that region, right? So there we go.
Exactly.
Official Hawaiian shirts as we head on into the official, except no substitutes, the official trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the Trading Block.
All right, listeners, welcome to the Trading Block, the portion of the show we break down, surprise, surprise, what the heck is trading out there? And man, it is a weird one out there. Coming off of the heels of a rare midweek holiday, I was a little thrown off my game, I'm not going to lie. Seems like the markets are as well. We got all sorts of stuff going on out here. We've got the Dow struggling to rally up about 0.4%. The S&P giving up the ghost, down about 1/3%. And the NASDAQ saying, look out below, off 0.8%. And our old friend, small caps, hanging out almost 0.5% to the dark side. If you want more FTSE Russell, stay tuned. I'll be joined by those folks coming up on TWIFO to talk all things recon. It is recon season, after all, listeners. So stay tuned for that if you are intrigued. All that mixed action means the vol front looking a little bit frothier right now than it was on the Thursday show, or even I should say on the Monday show. We're at about 13 1/4 right now. That puts us up a little over 0.5 point. That puts us up about 0.55 or so on the week. So yeah, pretty much 0.5 point from where we were on Thursday. So vol getting a little bit frothier. Say goodbye to my UVXY puts. They were a fun flyer, but they don't seem like the chicken's going to come home to roost on those this week. Listen, it's still a day left. Anything could happen out there, but it is a crazy week. We've got all sorts of mixed stuff. Then, of course, I'm sure we'll get to it a little bit later in the volume side. One name is just stands above the rest. A titan amongst children out there, listeners, when it comes to volume. So we'll get to all that fun. We'll start the way we went. Let's go out to the Flowmaster, sir. A lot going on out there today, sir. What's catching your eye?
Well, I mean, overall volume is pretty solid today. We're on pace for 60 million contracts, which will actually be in the top 10 of all time. A lot of times we see this and things kind of quiet down into the last hour or two, but we're clearly going to be over 52 million contracts. It's funny. I was just looking at realized volatility in SPX. 10-day realized is around 6%. So it has been awfully quiet. And, today we're getting a little bit of, at least we are getting a little action, right? And VIX is over 13. it's kind of reminds me of I think 2 or 3 shows ago, we were talking about the market moving, and it was like, there was a little fear, but what we were seeing was maybe a move of like 0.6, 0.7%. It was not a real move. It was just a much bigger move than kind of it's very easy to get lulled into the, we're going to move, whatever, 13, 14 handles a day on, a $5,200 index for the S&P. So when you do get a 30, 40, 50 point move, all of a sudden people start to get a little panicky. So, basically we are still in an awfully quiet volatility regime. The last 2 podcasts I listened to that were not Options Insider podcasts, and I do love the conversations from OIC. I was just listening to the Fidelity one yesterday, and but the last 2, there was Bloomberg Odd Lots, which is a big one, and also there's one called the Alpha Exchange by Macro Risk Advisors, Dean Kernat, who I used to work with, both on this topic of dispersion and really the fact that that the index is we're seeing some really interesting, up moves and down moves, but the index is kind of just netting things out, right? That's the whole point of an index. And in a way, what you have now, in fact, Dean Kernat mentioned it. He's like, if the index is actually diversifying as it should, right? You've got some stocks going up, some stocks going down, but the index actually doesn't really move very much. That actually kind of takes away the need to do an index hedge. And, for the last year or 2, we've been talking about how the skew has been flat, right? Where basically there doesn't seem to be a lot of demand for puts, and there seems to be a lot more demand for calls than we're used to. And this is it all makes sense when you think about the fact that you may have stocks going up 5 or 6 or 7 or 10%, or if it's NVIDIA, whatever, 5 or 6% a day. And then you have other stocks, crumbling. However, the index itself kind of nets everything out. So you end up with this really muted volatility, this really kind of low demand for hedges, which really is what we're seeing. I mean, it may be, I know we always say it's going to be a quiet summer and then things get crazy. But right now it kind of feels like it's going to be a quiet summer.
I don't know. This is what a quiet summer looks like, sir. This is a bit of a banger on the volume front because it's a lot of paper. We'll get to all of that fun in a second, listeners. First, let's keep rolling. Let's go out to the land of florid floral prints. I don't know. Is his Hawaiian shirt authentic? I guess we'll find out. Mr. Rock Lobster, sir, what's catching your eye out there in a very dense, very heavy market day?
I think it is I think it is an official Hawaiian print. I'm looking at the name now. It's a no, I don't think it's official Hawaiian, but it's a Suma. It is a silk Hawaiian shirt. They're quite I'm the only one dumb enough to buy silk Hawaiian shirts that have to be taken to the cleaners to be dry cleaned. So you can put that, in your Rolodex however you think necessary. I thought Henry's comments on the lower realized vol were quite quite accurate. We have a market kind of just grinding higher, and today we have a whole 25. We're down 14 SPX points, and VIX has managed to jump $1. Now, I don't know why everybody has their skirts in a bunch, but what the heck? I guess NVIDIA is down a little bit after being up on the day. Some of those AI darlings, I think there's some profit taking. Dell was up 10 points at one point today. CrowdStrike, although not necessarily an AI darling, but it was trading. It's had $10, $12 range. So we're getting some intraday range. So that's more like the ATRs are expanding a little bit. I think that's why VIX is expanding. But ultimately, so they're hitting some of the tech, but they're buying everything else. They're buying some oils. They're buying some banks. Actually, Goldman's flat on the day. They're buying a little biotech. They're buying some tech that's not AI. So a little bounce for commodities. I think, it's possible that the fact that government is paying $1 trillion in interest, most of that incurred over the last, 7 years, the last 15 years, let's call it 22 years, probably half of that debt or 3/4 of it over the last 23 years when interest rates were very low and now they're not anymore. So, we have commented on the show, like, why do we have inflation? It's Milton Friedman. It's a government generated thing. And I still haven't found any evidence that he was incorrect. We just never know how long it takes to rear its ugly head. So maybe the market is freaking out just a little bit what $1 trillion interest rate payments look like. Bank of England is not going to lower anytime soon, apparently, is what they said today. And in our own country, the U.S., the Fed's like, well, maybe one rate cut by the end of the year, if we're lucky. So something has to give, right? Why we can't get spending back down to 2020 level prior to the COVID. I think that's reasonable, although obviously we're stuck with the higher interest. But everything else, maybe they should think twice. But they're politicians and they don't think anyway. So that could be it. But again, it's like Henry said, we have a low realized vol market. We got VIX popping on a 16, 17 point drop in the SPX. The way I look at options right now, I think the best indicator is what are traders willing to pay. Although 100,000 of these contracts just went up. Maybe they rolled to the 18s, 15, 18. I'm not sure. But the 15 calls basically haven't moved all day. They're still like $1. So, and they're a 74 vol. So, does it mean volatility can go up? Sure. But as of right now, they're not coming for it enough to get the at the money vol and VIX out of the 70s. And as you know, 70s is not really, it's a good place to buy it, but you ain't making any money buying VIX calls if it stays there. So, we have kind of our first little downtick in a week. We've rallied 200 points since the day before the CPI number. So 200 points SPX to the top today. That is a pretty substantial rally, 4%. And I think, a little healthy sell-off is probably not a terrible thing at this level.
Let's keep going. Let's go out to the hinterlands of Chicago. Mr. Uncle Mike, I'm not sure if he has the silk Hawaiian shirts. I guess we'll find out. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, what is catching your eye out there in, again, a very dense market day, sir?
This is kind of a unique way of seeing the market work right now. I was about to say my trademark thing today, but I can't say it now. I don't feel right saying it when the market's currently down 20 points on the day. But we did hit a new all-time high. We're at 55.05 today on the SPX for a while. And then that was just something to where the market didn't want to go up anymore after that. What's interesting right now is that it almost kind of feels normal in that with inflation being such a fear thing right now, or such a thing, we now have precious metals going higher. And so gold is up a little over 1% on the day. Silver is up over 4% on the day, making possibly another run at the 30 level on SLV. We'll see what happens with that. It's at 28 again now. And $2 is definite easy striking distance in the world of silver, which is with as much as it has been moving lately. In terms of some individual names, Gilead's lighting up my tape today, up roughly 9% on the day. Apparently the news from what I've been listening to there is that they're going to have some type of an obesity drug now. It seems like in their world, obesity to them is like AI in the tech world, I suppose. So that's God bless the obesity drugs. So we have that. In terms of some other individual names, nothing is really sticking out too much today. The thing is sticking out is that NVDA is actually down on the day. It's down 3%. The 3% part's not a big deal for it, but the fact that it's just not going up 5% every day is the flow master had said a while ago. Not that it always has, of course, but it's actually red You don't see a lot in that very often in this marketplace. Aside from that, nothing too crazy in terms of lighting up my tape. It'll be interesting to see if we've touched the 5,500 key number in the S&P and we will come back from it, or we might kick the door down and we might come back. We will see.
We shall see indeed. What the heck is going on with this market? Listen, let's find out. Let's get out there. In fact, I ran the numbers for VIX, and then I ran them again right as Uncle Mike was talking, and VIX gaining almost another 100,000 contracts in a handful of minutes. So, yeah, it's a banger out there, listeners. We're seeing some numbers out there. Let's get to it. Let's start in VIX land, as I just mentioned. Is VIX putting up numbers? Yeah. The answer is yes. VIX is putting up some numbers. 965,000 contracts on the tape today. That's a far sight north of our ADV, which is hanging out at 822, actually coming down about 30-odd thousand contracts since the Monday show. I got a feeling it's going to be going back up in the other direction after today. If you're wondering what is leading the dance out there in VIX today, it looks like there's a size vertical, the July 15-18 going up a little over 100,000 times. So there's 200,000 contracts right there, but obviously nearly 750,000 more going up. So it's a dense day out there. We've got the AUG 12 puts, 81,000 of those going up, all opening there. So it's a crazy town day, listeners. Let's keep rolling and see what else is lighting it up. Is SPY lighting it up? Is it a day where VIX is exploding and SPY is kind of shrugging its shoulder? The answer is no. SPY is lighting up the tape as well. 5.15 million. Closing in on nearly 1 million contracts above where we expect it to be right now, about 0.8 million out there. The ADV nearly 7 million, 6.95 million out there. So a banger day in SPY. But, surely the S is quiet today, right? The S is having a tranquil day. The answer is no, listeners. 2.1 million contracts. It was not that long ago. I would say we're a little bit past the 2-year anniversary of this 0-day partay experiment, call it what you will, listeners. So I'd say a little over that time, maybe a little over 2 years ago. If you had told me the S is at 2 million by this point of the show, I would have said, whoa, what's going on? What's selling off? What's crashing? What's happening out there to drive all that paper? Now we see this, and it's not that far above where we expect it to be, about 1.75 million, but still a very dense day out there for the S. The ADV a little bit shy of 3 million, 2.92 million. Small caps also lighting it up. 750,000 contracts on the tape. The ADV 1.16 million out there. So certainly seems like it's on pace to hit that. And our old friend, the Qs, 2.5 million. The ADV about 3.32 million. So it's got a little ways to go out there, but it seems like it's going to hit it out there. So on the index side, it is a banger, listeners. But surely on the single name side, this is going to be one of those days where VIX has put up 1 million contracts, and it cost you 150,000 contracts to break into the top 10. Surely that is the case, listeners. And the answer for that is a resounding no, listeners. It cost you, tell you what, I'm going to re-rack it right now just to see if we broke. Yes, we did break through. Added another 5,000 contracts as I started talking, listeners. So now we are officially north of 300K to break into the top 10. 301 to be precise. That gets us to our old friend Micron. Selling off today. They're coming, as everyone alluded to. They are coming for some tech out there today. Coming for some chips in particular. Micron, $8.50 to the dark side. That's 5.5%, trading 144.90 now. Good for 301,000 contracts. It's been a little while since we've had a 300K day to break into the top 10 out here, listeners. No, we missed it. We missed it. We needed a little bit of paper out there to just right the ship. And we're seeing it today. Number 9 is, maybe it's your new favorite. Maybe you love it. Maybe you hate it out there, listeners. It's SMCI. Up $1.40 today, so that's pretty much unched. 921.40 is where it's hanging out right now. It's had a range of nearly 100 handles. 1,014 to the upside, 917.5 to the downside. So it's been moving today. All that netting out to 343,000 contracts on the tape and the number 9 spot. Number 8, can't forget about this one. Also kind of unched right now, up a penny. So we're coming at all these names, listeners, right as they're taking their midday hiatus, I suppose. 24.65, actually off about 4 cents now. This is GameStop. They've had about a $2 range, 25.69 to the upside, 23.65 to the downside. Hanging out right now, number 8, 387,000 contracts. Number 7, the Rock Lobster, just talking about this one. This is Dell. You don't see Dell too often. And usually when we do, something bad is happening, or they're having earnings, one of the two. Dell number 7, 389,000 contracts. They've had a banger range today as well, over $14. 147 and a third to the dark side, 161 and a half to the upside. If I take that back, the downside is now 146 and a half because that's where it's trading right now. Banger day here for Dell. All that conspiring to deliver 389,000 contracts for the number 7 spot. Number 6, another frequent offender. It's Palantir, 25 and a half, off about a third of a buck, or about 1.2%. A comparatively quiet day for them compared to the rest of the market. Only about a $1.30 range out there. Number 5 is the Amazonians, managing to keep the Dow alive. 184.90, up 210 today, a little over 1%. They've had almost a $4 range, 186 and a half to the upside, and 182 and about 3/4 to the downside out there, listeners. Good for number 5, 539,000 contracts. Number 4, yes, I said number 4. Are we seeing the beginning of a new paradigm, listeners? It is Tesla, number 4, 927,000 contracts. Nothing to sneeze at. That's impressive paper, but only enough for number 4 today. That shows you how dense of a day it is when Tesla's at number 4. 180.17, off about 469, about 2.5%. They've had a range of not even $5, listeners. 185.21 to the upside, 180 and 3/4 to the downside for Tesla, coming in at number 4, 927. Number 3, it's the fruit company, 1.26 million. So Apple taking a step past Tesla today. Interesting. We were just writing the eulogy for Apple as the king, or at least the number 2 of the options market. And here they conspired to prove us wrong. They just decided, Tim Cook's, I'm going to show those guys on the option block, especially that Longo guy. I'm going to buy back, 100 billion of my stock. That'll show them. We'll keep the options volume alive. Good for number 3, 1.26 million contracts on the tape, 209 and 3/4, off about $4.50 today, a little over 2%. Number 2, it's AMD, 161 and a third. So when I said they're coming for all chip names, I lied. AMD's popping hard. 670, up 4.3%. So apparently NVIDIA's woes are AMD's gains. Either way, a good day for them. Number 2, 1.59 million. What could possibly be number 1, listeners? What name did I leave off this list? In fact, I'm going to re-rack it again right now just to see if they put up, a million more contracts since I was talking. No, only 200,000 listeners, so a quiet day for them. What name could put up these, I think the technical term is redonkulous numbers? Yeah, this is NVIDIA, listeners. 7.66 million. Let me say that again. 7.66 million contracts a day. Usually you can break into the top 2 with a little over a million contracts. You can maybe take the number 1 spot with 1.3, maybe 1.5 million. 7.66, now you just showboat. This post-split NVIDIA is another beast entirely. Let me put it another way. You add up SPY and SPX together, and you don't have NVIDIA. You take SPY, SPX, and sprinkle in a little bit of small caps, and you're just about there. And with the way NVIDIA's trading, it'll be blowing past it any minute now. You add up VIX and SPY and SPX all together, and you beat it by a little bit. But you know what? Give it a couple minutes, and NVIDIA will be there as well. This thing is just... We were joking about how it's NVIDIA's market. We're all just living in it, but it does seem like that today. 131 and a quarter, having the temerity to sell off 4 1/3 handles, listeners, about 3.2%. How dare NVIDIA sell off? I guess it's just such a shock to the system that this volume is the result. By the way, if you're wondering what the hell are they trading out there, what is lighting up the tape? There's only 454,000 of the 140 calls expiring tomorrow, listeners. Yeah, we're nearly $10 away from those now. Someone traded those for, I think, $1.75 this morning. Yeah, $1.75. Nearly 5,000 of them traded. Now, in their defense, NVIDIA was 139.5 at the time. And we could be there again in the blink of an eye, but still. Nearly $2. These things go out tomorrow. They traded $1.50 not too long ago. About 2,000 times. So they are all over the place. They got as low as 39 cents. And obviously that even seems like too much now, listeners. So just crazy town. Mr. Flowmaster, you've been crunching the flow for a long time, for as long as I've known you, if not longer out there. Have you ever seen anything in the single name side like what NVIDIA is putting up today, sir?
I do not believe we have. I'm going to dig up the data, make sure. I'm getting an echo, Mark. The NVIDIA is by far the most active product, as you mentioned. It's currently basically NVIDIA makes up about a third of all the single stock options today. I've really never seen anything. I mean, it looks like we're going to hit 10 million contracts today, without actually pretty easily. And I was looking at the total dollars involved. I think we're looking at about, almost $3 billion worth of call premium has traded so far. We're kind of in the middle of the day. It's just off the charts. And it is very interesting, right? We were up this morning. I was just kind of looking at XLK, the tech ETF, just to see the price action. And I went back about a month, and out of 20 something trading days, I see 5 of them are red and all the rest are green. So it has been one heck of a run. I imagine that people will call today's move some profit taking. And it's just kind of wild. I mean, it's going to be, it is going to be big expiration tomorrow. I don't even know. It's this is a true kind of paradigm shift, obviously, in the whole AI world. There have been a lot of people that were a little bit on the fence or kind of saying maybe it was overhyped, but man, you see this kind of activity, and there's a lot of people that are happy to put some money to work.
I mean, you could add up the rest of the top 10. They don't even come close to NVIDIA right now. I mean, this is another level. Like you said, you've never seen it. I've certainly never seen anything like this on this level, listeners. Just takes a lot to stun the Flowmaster and myself into silence, but this is another level. We were speculating post-split, is NVIDIA just going to change the paradigm completely out here? Are we going to look back fondly? All those quaint days when Apple and Tesla would vie for the top spot with a little north of 1 million contracts. Look back on that and kind of laugh and chuckle the way we look back now on the pre-pandemic volume numbers we used to gloat over. I don't know if this is sustainable, listeners, but this is something to behold in and of itself. It's probably going to threaten 10 million contracts, if not north of that today. Again, we've never seen anything like where it is already. If it didn't print another contract for the rest of the day, it would already be in record territory. And we're just adding on to it. So, I mean, nearly 500,000 140s expiring tomorrow. That's what we're doing out here, listeners. Man, we could do the rest of the show on what the hell is up with NVIDIA. But we have to keep on rolling, listeners, into the Odd Block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by theoptionsinsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
All right, listeners. I don't know how we follow that up, but we're going to try. These are the days when I earn my hosting dollar, listeners. Let's see what we can dig up that can even scratch, even sniff the just maelstrom of paper that is NVIDIA out here today. Before we get there, listeners, I was talking earlier about some VIX verticals. I think it was the 15, 18. There's definitely some funky paper afoot out here in VIX. Mr. Flowmaster, seems like this has been coming across your radar as well. What's catching your eye out here in VIX land today, sir?
I'm glad you pointed that one out because, I have a very privileged position within Cboe, and VIX is a proprietary product, right? So we really do know what's going on in that product because we have 100% coverage. But the public data also shows on this package. So this was actually a single customer who bought 89,999 of the July 18 calls, and another 99,999, July 15s, and the July 18s was 99,000. So basically it was a buyer of both, kind of a stupid is what we would call it usually. They paid a total of $13.4 million for this trade. And one thing that I can see in the data, it isn't marked closing as the buyer. So I was kind of digging back. There's no similar sized entry block. And occasionally that closing indication is not reliable. It's not the most rock solid data point. But there is sufficient open interest in both sides. So it's possible that they They sold them kind of in smaller pieces back in June, like earlier in the month, and that they're basically kind of getting out now. I would imagine they didn't really make much money if they didn't hold the trade for very long, just because VIX was already low and it hasn't, we haven't moved around much. So that's a double buyer, and it was market closing, which I think is interesting.
Size buying VIX stupid. We're just adding to the unprecedented nonsense of today, Mr. Flowmaster. What else can we throw into the mix? What else you got for us? I think we got AKAM out here. Listen, I haven't talked about this one in quite some time. Ticker symbol AKAM, trading 89.43, up nearly $1.95, or about 1% today. This one's had a topsy-turvy year. A year ago, they were about exactly where we are, maybe about $1 higher. They were trading 90.68 a year ago, so within range. And then they had a nice run. They got all the way up to about, looks like 129 and change just earlier this year, February 12th. Then they fell off a cliff. They had sales estimates in line, but the market did not like hearing that. They sold off 8% that day, and over the course of the next week, they continued selling off. They sold off from about nearly 130 down to about 107 on February 21st. Then they treaded water for a little bit there, and then they sold off again. And they've been pretty much selling off ever since, down to where they are right now, 89.44. Pretty much, actually, yeah, now they have ticked down. They have ticked red on the year now, down 1.3%. So they had a nice run going, and they gave it all back. Mr. Flowmaster, sir, what's catching your eye out here in AKAM?
Yeah, so this is a bit of bearish flow that I noticed. Kind of first noticed it at the aggregate level. So, it's not the most liquid ticker. Trades about 4,100 contracts a day. The volume currently is approaching 10,000. So, we're about triple the expected volume for this time of day. And it's mostly puts. It's almost 7,000 puts versus just 3,000 calls. The blocks are not huge, but there was a buyer of 900 of the July 85 puts this morning for 90 cents when the stock was actually about here, 89.23. And then also the November 80 puts, we saw a buyer of about almost 500 of those for 330, also around 10:30 this morning. So the both of these look opening to me. And, as you mentioned, this is kind of a beat up stock. I mean, it's cloud computing or security or something like that, which I would think would be kind of in the more favored industry groups. But the stock hasn't done so well. So this could be somebody looking for it to run into trouble. It also could be somebody who's just kind of gotten really frustrated, losing some of the value of a position, and finally said, okay, you know what, I'm going to buy some puts. And so, with bearish flow like this, with bullish flow, I'm pretty comfortable trying to get into a long position, because to me that there's kind of only one real one dominant reason to buy calls is because you think the stock's going to go up. With puts, you have the double use case. You have the speculating on downside, and you have the simply hedging an existing position. I don't think I would actually short this name just because it's kind of already somewhat beaten up. But possibly, look for some opportunity to maybe sell a little bit of premium.
Mr. Hawaiian shirt guy, the silk Hawaiian shirt guy. First off, what are your thoughts on size VIX strangles going up? Closing, buying VIX strangles, 15, 18. Don't see that too often. And then B, what are your thoughts on somebody loading up to the downside here in your other favorite name, Akamai Technologies Inc., sir?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Henry. I mean, depending on when they sold those contracts, they might have got $2.50 or something for them. Again, depending on when, how long ago they sold them. But they've been kind of on a one-way road to Palookaville. They've been around the dollar range for at least a couple weeks here. So, and I thought that, again, it's my strangle time. I was 14, 15 strangle is still less than $2, which right now for a strangle that was all the way in the money relative to cash, that's the lowest price I have seen on it. So if you're going to close now today, it's actually lower, if you can believe it. Trading 188. So I paid $199 for a bunch, and I thought I was being really clever waiting for sub $2, and now they're $188. So if you're going to buy back your 15 calls, today would be a relatively good day to do it. So yeah, I could see how they could be closing. There's pretty heavy open interest, and they kind of dripped in selling them. I can't imagine what the margin is on selling that stupid. So not somebody with not a small amount of money. But I could see why you would want to close them. Relative price here with VIX at 1332. These calls are about as cheap as they've been, in forever. So as weak as the market looks today, and ultimately, I mean, really what today is just, it looks like Henry was talking about dispersion, right? So if they're getting rid of some of their big tech that's just been straight up for the first 6 months of the year, and they're starting to buy something else, like I actually just sold calls in Cisco that I had covered against stock that I was put, which I thought I would never, as a div play, trying to get 2% a month, like that boring stuff. Like I actually sold a call on an uptick. I almost fell over. So clearly they are buying options in other names. And I think Henry, he's kind of he's wily dude. He's like, yeah, Akamai is an older style tech name. It's been trading it was really active when I was a floor trader. So, I mean, that's 25, 30 years. So kind of more like old tech. And they're kind of coming for it. So I think the old tech might become interesting to traders, maybe trying to, they're up 170% this year in NVDA. You might see some, tech funds maybe lightening up a little bit, or Microsoft for that matter, and maybe buying some of these names that haven't performed as well.
Speaking of those names, let's see if we have one more in the docket for you listeners. Let's go out to a name that's been popping up on our radar quite a bit of late. This is Synchrony Financial, ticker symbol SYF. Trading right now $44.66, up about $1 or about 2.3% today. On the year, it's had a decent year, though most of that looks like that's come pretty much after the start of this year. A year ago, we were 32.71 or so. So it's up about 11, almost $12 on the year, about 36%. It actually sold off heading into Halloween. A lot of names did. Got down to about 27.30. So from there, it's had quite the run. It shot almost straight up end of November. Went from $29 all the way up to about 38 on December 14th. So within a couple of weeks, it added nearly $10. And it's been on the run ever since. It hit its high for the year of 46.75. That was back in early May. Kind of been chopping around this level ever since, hanging out right now, 44.67. And it looks like we've been noticing some upside call love out there. Mr. Flowmasters, that was catching your eye out there in Synchrony Financial today as well. I know the mute monster has struck him down again. Mr. Flowmaster, sir. There he is.
Sorry about that. You and I both noticed this name this morning. So, 8,000 calls versus 300 puts. And when you dig into it, it's almost all in the July 45 calls. As you said, the stock's around 44.66. So these are just slightly out of the money. And you actually can see the biggest block was 2,380 of them bought in one of these multi-market sweeps, which we've talked about, right, where somebody uses a smart router. In this case, the 2,300 lot was actually involved 75 individual executions across all 17 exchanges. The entire thing took 7 milliseconds. So that kind of shows you how the routing game works nowadays. And it's a big trade. It's opening a decent amount of premium there. And it's just kind of one of your straight bullish names. In fact, they're already doing okay on these. I think, like I said, the biggest chunk, they did buy a few more for $1.60, or maybe somebody else came in and bought them a little bit later. But $1.45 was most of them, and now they're trading at $1.65. So maybe somebody looking for a decent move in Synchrony. And as we sit here watching the market, we're bouncing back a little bit. This could be just another one of these days we just kind of end up, plus or minus 10 handles, and it keeps our realized vol in the low single digits.
Mr. Rock Lobster, sir, what are your thoughts? Synchrony been on our table a little bit of late. What are your thoughts on some more upside here for Synchrony Financial, sir?
What wasn't this called something else? Like it's this massive behemoth financial company, and it's was named something else. Like, where are they? Stanford Connect. I want to say there's some other. I don't know. It's like an old bank or whatever. Again, I think this is more of that same type of mojo here, where the market is looking for some stocks. Okay, hey, pays dividend, maybe kind of flattish for the year and a pretty strong up year, and money starts to gravitate toward these names. You're buying the July contract for $1.45, and I believe Henry just said it passed the number one test, which nothing like buying a call, and on the day you buy it, it's up money. That is an excellent an excellent way to start a call buy. So obviously they're up money, they're good, but again, relatively low vol, and the bank's super cheap. So, hey, they keep saying that these community banks are toast, but somehow it doesn't seem to be happening.
And your instincts were correct. This was formerly the credit card division of GE Capital. They spun it off back in 2014. So
that was pretty smart of them to rename it after the financial crisis.
Yeah, probably not the worst thing, as we keep on rolling, listeners, and go around the block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, listeners, we are coming up against it. As the Flowmaster said, it seems like maybe the sell-off mitigating a little bit as we're coming into the end of the show. We're still, looking red, though. Yeah, Dow up about 0.65%, S&P off about 1/3%, NASDAQ off nearly 0.9%, and our friend VIX Cash hanging out right around 13.5. So still looking frothy. We'll see if the worm turns here, maybe later on today during TWIFO, listeners. Wouldn't surprise me at all these days. You know what else doesn't surprise me is your thoughts on our question of the week. We said there's a lot of debate about GameStop right now. Some people believe there is shady business afoot, and the stock is clearly being manipulated for nefarious purposes. Others say this is just blatant overreach by the regulators, listeners. Where do you fall on this, listeners? Is there shady business afoot? Do you think the regulators just want headlines? Or are you in the who cares camp? We'll start with the uncleist of Mike's. Mr. Uncle Mike, where do you fall, sir? Shady business, regulators want headlines, or are you just saying who cares? And then what are you keeping an eye on for the rest of the week until the Monday show?
I'm actually in the all of the above camp. I'm not in the who cares camp, but I'm in the both camp in that regulators do want headlines. That's why they're regulators. And is there something shady going on? Yes. But as I've said before, I don't think it's any different than other shady things that are going on with other stocks. In terms of what I'm watching going forward, seeing if we can make the new all-time highs at 55.05, seeing if we can break those and make another run at it, possibly even today. Would love to say my trademark speech saying on Monday. That would be a wonderful, fun thing. Also watching bonds in that they're selling off just a little bit today, seeing how they're reacting to this with the stocks at the higher levels. And then in terms of some individual names, you got to watch NVDA if anything, for entertainment purposes. Watching that because it's just such a big part of the market. And also watching Microsoft at these all-time high levels that they are. The 450 mark, seeing if it can break through there. It's down on the day-to-day, but Microsoft has definitely caught my attention.
You're in the crosshairs of Uncle Mike, Microsoft. You hear that? Beware. Mr. Rock Lobster, same question for you, sir. First off, where do you fall on our GameStop question of the week? Shady business, regulators want headlines, or just who cares? And what are you keeping an eye on until the Monday episode, sir?
I believe it is kind of the shady business side. I think that's what the folks will be saying. It's feeling a little shady. But I agree with Mike. Is it any different than another guy talking their book up, like the big hedge fund guys that are like, oh yeah, oh that stock looks terrible. Oh yeah, and I'm short a bunch of it. It's It's all been going on since the beginning of time, I think. What am I looking at? Well, can we actually, I have an interesting statistic. I think it's been over 325 days or more trading days since we've had a 2% sell-off that has held close to close. Another reason why we have that anemic realized vol that we have right now. And the last time we had a streak being close to that long, it led us right into the Volmageddon. So it was 2017 and at the beginning of 2018. So although VIX got down to the 9 handle then, and we still have really not been able to hold in the 11 handle for more than maybe a day. I don't think we've closed 11 this year. So can this be a real sell-off, or is it really just going to be a sector rotation? And my spidey sense is feeling sector rotation, but I could be wrong.
And Mr. Flowmaster, sir, what are you keeping an eye on until your next appearance next Thursday? And also, where do you fall in our poll? GameStop, shady business afoot, regulators want headlines, or who cares, sir?
I'm going to be watching some of these. I was about to rerun my query on the number of inverted skew conditions because it would have been really good this morning when NVIDIA was up, because those cases where the calls are trading basically with a higher expected probability than the equivalent puts, we know that kind of isn't a very sustainable picture. So I'm going to kind of refresh that. On the GameStop question, one of the podcasts I listened to a couple weeks ago was Bloomberg Money Stuff, and Matt Levine, who's just a hilarious and very smart market commentator, defined it. He said, a meme stock is just something people trade because they want to be part of something. They want to be part of a community. It doesn't really have much to do with value. And, I think that you see a lot of that, obviously. I don't know, I said, I think even on this show, that I kind of get the feeling that Roaring Kitty might have been backed by somebody to kind of get into this big position. Now he's long a bunch of stock. Actually, even with today's little sell-off, GameStop's actually trickling a little bit higher today. It's up about 30 cents, near 25. So I think we're going to keep seeing it. You can't kind of put out this meme fire. You just have to let it run its course. So, I don't think, maybe somebody will get called in, but like if things kind of stay quiet like they have been for the last week or so, it'll probably just fade away.
That music means it is time for the show to fade away, listeners. But before we do that, we got more coming in the pike, including I'll be chatting more equities on TWIFO in a little bit with the folks from FTSE Russell. So stay tuned for that little check-in right now. NVIDIA up to 8.33 million contracts already, listeners. So we said it was going to keep climbing, and it has done so indeed. So it was at 7.66. So already adding on, clearly on its way to 10 million, maybe above by the end of the day out there today, listeners. And in terms of our poll, what are you folks thinking right now? You're all in on the shady business. Shady business is afoot, 62.3%. Who cares, 24.6%. And 13.1% say the regulators just want their headlines. At Options is the place to go to make your voice heard on that one, listeners. And let's go around the horn. Mr. Uncle Mike, where should folks go if they want more Uncle Mike goodness in their lives?
Well, got a webinar coming up on Tuesday night again. Follow me on Twitter for more information there. We're going to talk about put protection strike price selection. My Twitter handle is @MikeTosaw, Tosaw. If you're looking for a financial advisor and just want to have a conversation, go to my website, stcharleswealth.com. Would love to have a talk with you.
There you go. Check him out, stcharleswealth.com. He's a webinar machine now, so make sure you register for one of those webinars he's got coming out seemingly every week over there. And Mr. Rock Lobster, where should folks go if they want more Rock Lobster goodness in their lives?
Go to optionpit.com. You can try Option Pit University, which is probably the best content if you don't want to do live and you just want to learn stuff. Very reasonable price. We put new videos in every week. Probably the best venue for learning about options, all the ways to trade them, understanding zillions of topics, Like, I think there's 75, 100 videos in there. Probably by the end of this year, there'll be 150 or more on any topic you can think of trading options. So venture on over to optionbit.com. And also, I believe tonight we have a getting done with Mark on 0DTE options. He had a really good run with a strategy, trading them, double down strategy. Check it out, optionbit.com tonight. I believe it's 7 or 8 p.m. Eastern.
There you go, optionpit.com, the place to go to learn more. Mr. Flowmaster, where should folks go if they want to run all these, let's say, NVIDIA numbers or anything else we talked about? They want to check out all that flow for themselves. Where should they go? What should they do?
Just head over to Cboe.com/RMA, which stands for Risk and Market Analytics. You can request a trial, and we will be happy to show people exactly how to see how much NVIDIA is traded and how much is expected to trade, which as of this moment comes out at 11.8 million contracts.
Just keeps getting crazier, listeners. You want to see those crazy numbers for yourselves? Cboe.com/RMA is the place to go. We got to get on out of here. Like I said, back again in a little bit for TWIFO. Should be a fun one. Then back again tomorrow, noon Central, 1 p.m. Eastern, to talk some vol. Who's going to join us on the show? Got to tune in to find out. And then after that, we're back to talk some crazy paper. Can anything be crazier than NVIDIA today? I guess we'll find out tomorrow on Options Oddities. You got to head on over to theoptionsinsider.com/pro to get your hands on that one. Then we're back again on Monday, another episode of the Option Block. Stay safe out there, everybody.
The Option Block is brought to you by Cboe. Cboe's suite of S&P 500 index options, SPX and mini S&P 500 XSP options, allows traders to speculate on the direction of the market, generate income, and hedge for downside protection of their portfolio of stocks. No matter what kind of trader you are, there's plenty of useful information to take the guesswork out of creating your portfolio strategy and to help you make more educated moves in the market. Visit www.cboe.com/SPX today to learn more. The views expressed herein are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of Cboe Global Markets Incorporated or any of its subsidiaries, collectively Cboe. The information provided is for general education and information purposes only. There are important risks associated with transacting in any of the Cboe products or any of the digital assets discussed here. Before engaging in any transactions in those products or digital assets, it is important for market participants to carefully review the disclosures and disclaimers contained at www.cboe.com/US_disclaimers. These products and digital assets are complex and are suitable only for sophisticated market participants. These products involve the risk of loss, which can be substantial and, depending on the type of product, can exceed the amount of money deposited in establishing the position. Market participants should put at risk only funds they can afford to lose without affecting their lifestyle. You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.